Welcome to Total Retail Talks, your podcast channel for retail knowledge.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of Total Retail Talks. I'm Joe Keenan, the editor-in-chief of Total Retail. I'm pleased to be joined on today's episode by Zaven Ghanimian. Z is the CEO of Simon G Fine Jewelry, as well as Brooke Brinkman, and Brooke is the COO of Simon G Fine Jewelry. We're going to talk about that brand, its growth, and its work with private independent retailers, and learn a little bit more about the Simon G story. So, Z and Brooke, thanks for joining me on today's show.
Thanks for having us.
So to get us started, I'd love to learn a little bit more about the business. Tell a story about how it got started for those in the audience that might not yet be familiar with Simon G.
Sure. Simon G is a family-owned and operated fine jewelry company. We're working in our fourth decade of the company, and oftentimes we get the question, is Simon G just the name of a company, or is there actually a person? And we're fortunate enough to have a man named Simon Ghanimian, who is the founder of our company. Simon immigrated to the States in the late 70s with aspirations of becoming an engineer. He went to NYU and realized the $200 he had in his pocket wasn't going to get him very far in terms of educational classes. And so he found himself using the skills that he had been given generationally, and that was working in the fine jewelry district. His grandfather had been a jeweler, and so he had learned those skills kind of growing up in the trade. And after several years, he vacationed to California and found that to be a place he wanted to continue. So continued working as a jeweler. And then several years later, decided that the designs he was making were something that people would want to purchase. People mentioned to him, you should probably start your own company. Simon is a very, very humble person. Wasn't really sure how to go about that. And so he went to the registrar's office and said, I'm told I should set up a company. They asked him, great, what do you want to call your company? Simon said, I don't really know. And they asked him his name. His name is Simon Ghanimian. And they kind of laughed a bit and said, well, I don't think anyone will remember that or be able to pronounce it. Can we call you Simon G? He said, fine. And that's the day that the Simon G brand was born. From there, he took his designs and started traveling the United States, sharing them with retailers who started to purchase the brand from him. And often those retailers still tell us their favorite salesperson was their first, which was Simon himself. From there, that $200 and that ambition to be an engineer grew into what is now Simon G Jewelry, standing at about 1,200 retailers strong across the United States, Canada, and the Caribbean. That relational element of the brand that Simon first had in knocking on doors and speaking with people directly still remains a core pillar of our business today. And we are very excited about all of the things that Simon's been able to do over the years and the foundation that he's created that allows us to move forward.
Speaking about some of the foundation, I think that for us as a brand, the design and manufacturing process internally is extremely important. It's important to keep that consistency and that quality. They really matter when it comes to trusting a brand and making an emotional purchase. I like to say we're not just a branded jewelry company, we actually build the jewelry.
So we're completely vertically integrated. So we do everything from concept to creation. Our design teams start with a sketch. They sketch those pieces, which then moves into CAD and moves through our production teams. Our customer service and quality control teams handle those pieces, and then they are sent out to our retail partners. And so every piece that moves through our company touches about 20 to 30 hands before it actually gets to that end consumer.
So thank you for sharing a little bit about the origin story. It's really remarkable how the company got its start and where you've grown it to today. I'd love to kind of follow up on that and get a little bit about your personal connections to the business. Tell me a little bit about how you're each connected to the Simon G business.
So me, being the son of Simon, I grew up around the business. I grew up in the business. I watched my dad, or Simon, as many people know him as, build a strong relationship with our retailers and our partners. The brand actually was never built on hype or celebrity. It was built through trust and these one-on-one connections. I didn't inherit a logo. I inherited a big responsibility. And I feel like, we've come a very long way and we want to continue to push and continue to go at a steady pace.
And I was first introduced to the brand actually on the retail side. I was part of a retail store that carried the brand. And what was very striking to me was not only seeing how consumers connected with the design of the brand, but knowing that that name Simon wasn't just a brand name, it was actually a person that we could phone who was very eager to hear not only from us as ownership, associates, but also from the consumers, and really listened intently on what the desires were of those consumers and worked to create something that could be very meaningful to them. That spoke volumes not only to us as a retail partner, but also to our consumers. Simon would fly around the country and come into stores just to have the ability to interact with consumers, to better understand what they were looking for so that he could take that and it inspired new collections that he was creating. It was really unique to watch consumers not only purchase a piece, but then become almost a collector of the brand, adding to their collection and watching Simon continue to develop new pieces that gave them the ability to add for different occasions, different price points. But I think it was really that human element of the brand that stood out for me. Years later, I now sit working for that brand and getting to work alongside my husband, who is Z, and Simon is my father in law. So it has not only an emotional connection based on what I see transpiring through the consumers who get to wear and enjoy these pieces, but also from a very personal, familial relationship as well. And wanting to be able to carry that foundation that Simon created into the future and for many generations to come.
Yeah, truly a legacy for each of you. In my kind of research for this interview, what one kind of struck with me is that Simon G has taken really a different path than many modern jewelry brands. In it's prioritizing independent retail partners over a heavy focus or heavy emphasis on D2C. My question for each of you is kind of what led to that retailer first philosophy, particularly as I mentioned at a time when so many brands are bypassing wholesale.
First, I'd like to say that our independent jewelry stores across the United States and the different territories are the backbone of our industry. They're the ones facing the consumer, and the consumers typically walk into the stores. Traditionally, I know that's changed a little bit, but we still believe that there's a very strong presence, and the retailers' positioning is very important. Um, the retailers built Simon G alongside our family and theirs most of the time, and we see a lot of brands chase that short-term DTC because of margins or whatever, but we choose to partner with a longevity with our retailers.
I think, we don't want to compete with the very retailer who built our brand. It's important for us to find ways that we can support them. So, what retailers need today is not pressure. They need support. They are the front lines, as Zaven mentioned. They're facing these consumers day in and day out, and they are the mouthpiece for our brand. So it's really important for us to find ways that we can help strengthen them through our merchandising, our education, the ability to kind of help them close the sale with different assets and tools. That's what we focus on. So we're never selling product, we're selling the opportunity to make a connection. We oftentimes talk about giving our consumers the ability to hold that memory in their hands. And so it truly is a relationship in the long term. And it's not just a word that we toss around lightly, it is a core pillar of our business, that relationship development, further enhancing it and chasing the long term, not the short term gain.
To your point, Brooke, about strengthening that relationship with your independent jewelry partners, Simon G's approach to e-commerce, in which it's routing online orders to local retail partners while protecting their margins, it speaks to that commitment that you've made. I'd love to learn a little bit more about how that model has evolved and what the retailer response has been to kind of how you've set up that e-commerce model.
Sure. Well, we've always felt that technology and the internet, things of that nature should enhance the emotion, never replace the human connection. And when many brands were running to move to DTC, they weren't necessarily keeping in mind how that could affect the retailer. And a lot of our retailers saw this as potentially a negative for them. And so we really kind of slowed things down. So when would be the perfect opportunity to help enhance and support our retailers? We're always looking at ways to continue to help them close that sales channel. And COVID provided a perfect opportunity for us. Many of our retail partners were closed out of their brick and mortar spaces. They were no longer able to directly interact with their consumers. And a lot of the consumers wanted to support these retailers because they had been a pillar in their local markets. They had been very supportive over the years and they wanted to find a way to make that connection. We saw that as a perfect opportunity to step in and help bridge that gap between the retailer and the consumer and allow for e-commerce to play a role in letting the consumer choose pieces, letting us be able to deliver that piece directly to the consumer, but not cutting out the retailer throughout that transaction. We know consumers want to have ease of use, convenience, and sometimes that doesn't allow in going into the store. So we really built this platform so that consumers would have the opportunity to access a wide array of product but allow the retailers to also be able to benefit from that sale. So consumer can feel as though they're having a shopping experience online, but they would have the choice to either pick up that piece in store once the stores were back open and operational. If they chose not to go into store, the retailer was still benefiting from a sale that happened in their market. So they would realize this wasn't a way for us to compete against them. It was truly a way for us to support them. We wanted to use those digital efforts to strengthen our retail relationships, not weaken them in any way.
And just to add to that, many wholesale brands end up damaging a lot of relationships by undercutting their retailers. And that's something we're very conscientious about. We're always thinking long term, not just short term transactions. And we want to protect our retailers' margins.
Mhm.
I think that's very important to us to the core. And we hold by that strong.
And our brand is a price protected line. So for the consumer, no matter where they're going to experience the interaction with the brand, be it at retail or online through our sales channels, they're going to see the same price point. So they're not going to be able to feel like they can, they can come to us directly and receive a better experience or a better price point. Everything we do is truly directed through the retail partner. We're recognizing them at some point in the process.
So each of you have talked about the fact that Simon G is operating in a category that emotion and relationships are critical, right? So I'm interested to kind of hear your thoughts on, given that kind of dynamic in the jewelry category, how do you think at Simon G about balancing technology? There's so much hype around artificial intelligence and how that's disrupting industries and um, with the in-store experience, right? Because you've talked about this relationship with the private jeweler, the independent jeweler, and the person going into their shop. So, how do you kind of square the two between leveraging technology but also not minimizing that in-store experience?
Well, sure. I mean, technology should remove any friction. We see it as an ability to enhance the emotion, but as I mentioned earlier, it can never replace the human connection. The ability to utilize AI and some of the functionality around the AI to help with more routine tasks, perhaps educational opportunities, visualization, personalization, those things, could certainly come in and be helpful to the retailer who may not have the manpower to be able to achieve some of those tasks, but it should never replace the ability to come in and receive a human thought on the design or direction, the ability to touch and feel a piece and truly experience its magic through that opportunity. We often say technology should remove the friction, but it should never be the sole entity for moving
Yeah.
forward.
And jewelry is an emotional, we've talked about it is an emotional purchase a lot of the times. And AI can help with a lot of things, but AI can't replace or mimic emotional moments. It cannot replace or mimic human trust. It cannot convey craftsmanship. And technology can enhance the emotion, but it really can't replace the human connection that we really strive for.
I think a lot of times too, brands rely on words. You hear craftsmanship tossed around quite frequently. And it for us, that's not something we speak to. It's at the core of what we do. So the ability to actually experience what quality and craftsmanship looks and feels like, that can really only be achieved through human touch, through human experience. AI can dictate it, it can speak to it, but I think, the connection and the emotion really comes through in that ability to touch and feel that piece.
Yeah, that human connection, like you said. Um, let's take a kind of more of a macro view, a step back and look at the category, the industry as a whole. And there's several kind of interesting shifts happening in the jewelry space. The price of gold is rising. There's changing consumer expectations, growing interest in lab grown diamonds. So, can you talk about those kind of shifts that are happening and then how that then impacts Simon G's thinking about product strategy and consumer education?
So consumers today are more educated than ever. They can get online, get a wealth of information, and it gives them a lot of options. We believe in obviously transparency and the education, and different customers want and need different things, whether it's, natural or lab grown diamonds. I believe they can coexist just fine. Our job isn't to dictate what our consumers want or should buy. Rather, it's to educate them with honesty and help them make the right choice for their life, their budget, and their mission. Um, Rising gold prices have led to different technological advances in terms of being creative with our metals and maybe coming up with different mixes. We have 18 karat, of course, we have 14, we have platinum, but we have developed a new platinum 600, which is kind of new to the United States market. We value engineering, product diversity is very important, and still maintaining the craftsmanship with regards to price point. We can always build something that's completely amazing and that's way out of a reach, but that doesn't really help anybody. It's really important to us that we help our consumer feel the mission that they have and feel comfortable in doing so.
Yeah, I think everybody has a different set of needs and a different budget that they're trying to work within. As long as they know the value of what they're actually purchasing, what the longevity of that value looks like. As Zaven mentioned, it's really important that they understand honestly and it's very transparent in what they're getting for what they're paying. Our brand doesn't necessarily work in lab grown diamonds. However, we set a lot of lab grown centers. So in our bridal pieces, we were using 18 karat gold and natural diamond in those mountings. But the center stone is something that the customer chooses. It could be anything from a colored stone to a natural diamond to a lab diamond. We think that's really a beautiful marriage of all of the different things that are happening in our industry. The ability to put a lab grown center to something that is a fine metal, a luxurious metal, and natural diamond. They kind of get the best
Yeah.
of all
And
worlds.
they get options, whereas before it was like you walk in and you got to buy this 1 carat diamond and it's
Mhm.
this much and this is the way to do it. And it's 3 months pay and this is what it's got to be. And a lot, I feel like that was very restricting. And, we have so many options today to fit any budget, any need, any purpose, any mission.
Yeah. The benefits to consumer, to your point, it gives them more flexibility in their purchasing decisions because there's options out there that perhaps weren't there several years ago. Brooke, you talked about kind of the origin story of the business, kind of this humble beginning. Simon G has grown into this nationally recognized brand, but it's also kind of remained core to that family owned and vertically integrated structure. So, talk a little bit about how maintaining that level of control over design, your manufacturing processes, the distribution of your product has influenced the growth of the business.
So I can start off
Sure.
here because I do a lot of the, on the manufacturing process. I'm like very, very involved there. And we're very big believers in control creates consistency. We are very hands-on and very involved in the design process, in the manufacturing, the setting, the finishing, the QC, These are all very important things, and we keep it extremely consistent so that we can manage to keep a collection or pieces throughout a longer time. Luxury is consistency, and vertical integration allows us to protect the consistency.
Yeah, I think the benefit for us and maybe the point of differentiation between our brand and others is that there's direct access to ownership every day. So at any point in time when our team needs to have an answer or needs to connect, they can reach either one of us, they can connect with Simon. All three of us are very visible and very reachable. So it really allows us to be very agile. We can move extremely quick when we see these changes that are happening rapidly in our industry, gold prices rising, new materials coming onto the market. We aren't waiting to assemble a board, go through various discussions as to what to do. It's a very small gathering. We're able to discuss it quickly and implement very quickly as well. It allows for a much closer collaboration between the departments. So when we speak about being family owned and operated, the extension of our family is really our team. So, we have people who've been with us 20, 30 years, and they've really become our extended family. And so we operate in a very close knit environment. Everybody understands how best to communicate with one another to allow us to reach decisions and implement extremely quick. It also allows for a lot stronger retail support. Our team knows our retail partners intimately. They come here to our shop. We interact with them. Our staff internally goes out and shares time in our retail stores. So the deeper those connections and relationships are, the easier it is to understand one another and be able to solve any challenges or problems that come up. We're not trying to figure out how to communicate it. It's really just what's going to be in the best interest of everybody moving forward. We kind of know how everybody needs to hear it. And also, I think at the end of the day, there's a lot more accountability in this structure. It's hard for people to kind of hide. It's hard for us to close a door and hide behind it. At the end of the day, every piece that leaves this place has our name inscribed inside it. And so there's a great amount of pride that's there, but certainly an extreme amount of accountability, making sure that if we do mess up, which does happen on occasion, they're able to call us directly. We're able to speak directly with one another, take accountability for that, and figure out how to rework things. So I think just being able to pivot extremely quick, being able to be very closely connected with each department, as well as our external partners through our retailers and the end consumer. It's really built for a great foundation and I think great ability to move forward with the ever-changing market.
So I'll wrap up our conversation. Z and Brooke, you've done a great job of kind of telling the Simon G story from start to present day, which naturally leads into my last question about where the business is headed next. So tell us a little bit about where you see the future for Simon G. What are the keys to kind of continue the momentum that you've built for the business?
I think, there's always a growth desire, but for us, I think that growth desire comes with the ability to scale, but never lose the soul of the brand. We have strong relationships, as we've mentioned multiple times. That's really important to us. We certainly want to be innovative. We want to be able to be relevant, but we never want to lose the elements that really built our company, the core of who we are, our craftsmanship, our quality, our ability to be accessible to our staff and our retail partners. Those are extremely important characteristics that have built us to this day and that we hope to never lose as we move forward. Our our goal is not to grow bigger, but rather to make sure that we still matter in 20, 30, 40 years, to be relevant, but to still maintain a very strong soul.
And we can do that with keeping consistency, keeping our craftsmanship, our quality control, and our relationships, that human touch, the humans that we are. We keep it very humble. Like Brooke said, all of ownership is reachable. And we are kind of the opposite of corporate America, where we are the true American dream of a small family business building and continuing on a legacy. Like Brooke said, not for 20, not for 30, 40 years, but even longer.
I think it's So making sure that our customers see that value and versatility in everything we do. So they're investing in something. We want them to see that they're getting great value for their investment and the ability to wear and enjoy it for many years to come. As I mentioned earlier, we believe that we give our customers the opportunity to hold their memory in their hand. The craftsmanship and quality of that piece allows it to live for generations to come. So not only carrying with it the design and the beauty of the piece, but also the stories that that piece has lived through. We value that very greatly, and it's a true honor to be able to give that gift to our consumers.
I always say we're very lucky because we get to enjoy all the happy moments in people, all the special moments, you know, and our piece, our creations stay with them for a very long time with these memories. It's really important to me. We hold a lot of pride in that. The future isn't going to be easy for sure. We know that, but we're prepared for it. We know that our industry is changing constantly. The consumers' desires are changing all the time. We're adapting as fast as we could. But, some of the challenges we face are evolving fast enough without losing that personal touch.
Yeah, I think we've always believed that luxury should feel very personal and never be transactional. And, we believe, as we've mentioned time and time again, we succeed when our retailers succeed.
Well, this has been a really enlightening conversation. I've really enjoyed spending time with each of you and learning more about Simon G. I think our audience will love this story as well. So I want to take the opportunity to thank Z and Brooke of Simon G for joining us on this episode of Total Retail Talks. Thank you to the both of you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening. For more information on this podcast, please go to mytotalretail.com/podcast for show notes. Total Retail Talks is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, SiriusXM's Pandora, YouTube, and YouTube Music. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few moments to rate, review, and subscribe. Thanks, and until next time, this has been Total Retail Talks.